老美的农业部又解雇了70多名外籍研究人员。
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has fired over 70 researchers, most of whom were postdoctoral fellows from China. The USDA stated that the dismissals were related to food safety, and these researchers from countries like Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China will no longer be allowed to participate in USDA research projects. The statement also mentioned that the researchers were not informed in advance and found out they were fired only when they tried to use their access cards and discovered they no longer worked. The news has caused a stir within the Chinese community. Some netizens have commented, "It was about time. Food safety and agricultural security are paramount for any country. To ensure the safety of U.S. food supplies, the Department of Agriculture has carried out security checks and dismissed researchers from hostile countries like China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. This action is absolutely necessary." Others have remarked, "The U.S. crackdown on CCP infiltrators has finally begun. Of course, these individuals couldn't be informed in advance, or they would sabotage the process. This is the right approach. Over the years, the CCP has infiltrated the U.S. with too many spies, but they've all been under close surveillance by U.S. intelligence agencies. Now they will be anxious every day, reluctantly trying to flee, or face being fired or even arrested. Their good days are over." Political commentator Tang Jinyuan noted, "The CCP's infiltration into the U.S. agricultural sector is multifaceted. For example, it has purchased agricultural land, such as WH Group, and directly acquired the U.S.'s largest pork producer. There has also been widespread theft of U.S. agricultural intellectual property, grain, seeds, and genetic data, among other things. Just last month, 2 Chinese researchers, a couple, were charged by the U.S. Department of Justice for smuggling agricultural bioweapons, specifically toxic fungi, into the U.S. One of the individuals was a loyal CCP member. Following this, the federal government announced plans to prohibit Chinese citizens from purchasing U.S. farmland and to end agricultural research collaborations with hostile countries. U.S. Agricultural Secretary Rowlands emphasized that foreign enemies would not be allowed to control U.S. land, laboratories, or livelihoods. Tang Jinyuan added, "The decoupling between the U.S. and China, which started in sensitive fields like technology and military sectors, is now spreading to the agricultural sector, which is relatively less sensitive. This is a reflection of the escalating Cold War and confrontation between the U.S. and China." Analysts pointed out that the showdown between the U.S. and China began when Trump was re-elected, and he hasn't wasted a second. While the trade war 2.0 appears to be subsiding, a deeper, more intense espionage war between the two nations has already unfolded. Due to the accumulated crises, the Trump administration has had to act swiftly, tackling the most urgent issues first. Currently, Trump is targeting CCP infiltrators from 3 directions. The first target is Chinese researchers, visiting scholars, and students with CCP or military backgrounds. Since these individuals don't hold U.S. citizenship, deporting them is relatively straightforward. Those considered high risk but lacking enough evidence are being expelled to avoid future problems, like the postdoctoral researchers mentioned earlier. Those with clear evidence of wrongdoing are arrested immediately, such as the so-called scholars involved in smuggling agricultural bioweapons. The second category involves CCP infiltrators who hold U.S. citizenship. A recent case reveals that U.S. law enforcement has begun to act against these individuals. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that Chen Guanggong, a Chinese-American engineer from California, pled guilty on July 21st to charges of stealing U.S. trade secrets. He faces up to 10 years in federal prison. Gong holds both U.S. and Chinese citizenship. While briefly employed at a Los Angeles-based R&D company last year, he transferred over 3,600 company documents to personal storage devices. He has since posted a $1.8 million bail and remains out on bail. Gong is 59 and used to live in San Jose. He was staying temporarily in Thousand Oaks and was arrested on February 6, 2023. Federal prosecutors say he stole trade secrets developed for the US government, including technology to detect nuclear missile launches, track ballistic missiles, and monitor hypersonic missiles. According to Gong's plea agreement, his actions resulted in an estimated economic loss of more than $3.5 million US. However, industry experts believe the actual damage is far greater, given the extreme sensitivity of these stolen secrets. In January 2023, Gong was hired by the victim company to work in one of its laboratories as a specialized integrated circuit design manager, responsible for designing, developing, and validating infrared sensors. Between March 30th and April 26, 2023, Gong transferred thousands of documents from his work laptop to 3 personal storage devices. Among these were more than 1,800 documents transferred after he accepted a job with a major competitor on April 5, 2023. Gong was arrested on February 6, 2024, and appeared in court the following day. At the time, the case was classified as a minor federal offense. A woman named Ms. Chu posted bail for Gong, securing his release with a $2.5 million bond, but he was placed under location monitoring and curfew. Just 20 days later, the U.S. Assistant Attorney's Office officially filed charges against him for stealing commercial secrets. The 3,600 documents he transferred contained highly sensitive content. The Department of Justice stated that these documents included blueprints for precise infrared sensors for space-based systems designed to detect nuclear missile launches, track ballistic missiles, and hypersonic missiles. Other sensor blueprints were also included. These sensors are designed to allow U.S. military aircraft to detect incoming heat-seeking missiles and take countermeasures, such as jamming the missile's infrared tracking capabilities. Some of these documents were later found on storage devices seized from Gong's temporary residence in Thousand Oaks, California. Gong is also accused of transferring commercial secret files related to the development of next-generation sensors, capable of detecting low observable targets while enhancing space survivability. He also transferred blueprints for mechanical components used to cool the company's sensors. These files are among the company's most valuable commercial secrets, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Many documents were marked as proprietary, official use only, confidential, and export controlled. The Department of Justice also noted that between 2014 and 2022, Gong frequently visited China while employed at several major U.S. tech companies. He submitted numerous applications to CCP-managed talent programs. In a 2019 email, Gong mentioned that he took the risk of participating in the program, believing he could contribute to the CCP's high-end military integrated circuits. Experts say that CCP infiltrators with U.S. citizenship often have strong financial backing, depending on their value and risk to the CCP. In this case, the large bail amounts and the involvement of individuals with suspected CCP ties suggest the legal process will be slow, as similar cases have often been handled leniently. However, based on this plea agreement and the timing, it's clear that Gong's legal team chose to compromise under pressure, signaling that the Trump administration has significantly stepped up its efforts against CCP infiltrators this year. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is also targeting a third group of infiltrators, long-term illegal immigrants, including many Chinese illegal immigrants who entered the U.S. in recent years, particularly last year. Trump has long stated that many of these individuals are CCP military personnel and pose significant dangers. Recently, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) has launched a large-scale enforcement operation, with one of its main objectives being to identify dangerous CCP military infiltrators.
突发，洛杉矶又有一家仓库酒吧被突袭。
Breaking news: another warehouse bar in Los Angeles was raided. On the night of July 19th, law enforcement raided a warehouse and bar in Monterey Park, Los Angeles. This time, the raid took place at 10501 Warehouse, and a dozen people were taken away. Many family members rushed to get help overnight, and on the 20th, we received multiple calls from concerned families. This raid involved a joint operation by the FBI, CBP, and ICE. This morning, 2 families asked us to represent them in their cases. When something like this happens, it's overwhelming for the families. They don't know what to do or where to start. The common concerns are, where have the people been taken? Can they be released? Will they be deported? What's next step? Over the past year, we've handled nearly 100 bail and parole cases, so we are very familiar with the process and policies.
The video shows a law office that mostly represents Chinese immigrants who have entered the US illegally. The warehouse numbers it revealed suggest that the area is home to large, well-organized hiding spots for illegal immigrants. It is part of a systematic, established illegal immigrant network. Looking at the number of cases it handles, nearly 100 have been reported in the past year alone. These are just the cases that were caught. If we factor in those that went undetected, the number of illegal immigrants in this small area is massive. Could there be CCP military personnel among them? It's highly likely, and there may be quite a few. Given this, the US is stepping up its efforts to target illegal immigrants once again. Acting Director of ICE Todd Leons said in an interview with CBS News on July 20th that ICE will arrest all people illegally residing in the US, even if they have no criminal record. The agency will also focus on tracking down on employers who hired undocumented workers. Leons explained that ICE will prioritize deporting illegal immigrants with serious criminal records. However, if other illegal immigrants are found during operations, they will also be arrested. He noted that some cities and states that implement sanctuary policies refuse to turn over non-citizen detainees to ICE, forcing agents to carry out arrests within communities, which has led to an increase in collateral arrests. Leons stated that ICE aims to focus on criminal immigrants identified by local or state law enforcement as public safety threats and who are already in custody. However, when local authorities do not cooperate, ICE is forced to enter communities to make arrests. He emphasized that ICE will arrest anyone illegally residing in the US, as required by law. Under the previous administration, ICE enforcement focused mainly on individuals with serious criminal records, national security risks, or recent illegal entries. Since President Trump's re-election, ICE has broadened its immigration law enforcement efforts. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller set a goal of arresting 3,000 people daily. While that goal has not been reached, Congress has allocated billions of dollars to enhance deportation and law enforcement capabilities. Leon stated that since the new administration took office, ICE has fully resumed and was carrying out its enforcement duties. He also pointed out that ICE will intensify its efforts against illegal labor and employers who break the law. Recently, hundreds of suspected undocumented workers have been arrested at workplaces in Nebraska, Louisiana, and California, including 10 minors. When asked if employers will be held responsible, Leons responded, 100%. We have to hold these American businesses accountable. He stressed that these actions not only address immigration law violations, but also tackle issues like forced labor and human trafficking. Analysts suggest that the policy of arresting all illegal immigrants, even those without criminal records, sends a strong message with clear intentions against the CCP. Many CCP infiltrators, including military personnel, have entered the US over the past year, and the most of them have no criminal records. These individuals are considered to be the most dangerous. Why is there also a stronger focus on cracking down on employers hiring illegal labor? Because many Chinese-owned businesses such as restaurants, massage parlors, bars, and even warehouses have long served as contact points for CCP secret police operating overseas. These places often act as first stops and safe houses for infiltrators. While this policy may seem broad and challenging to enforce, it is an effective and precise approach. Arrest first, then sort out the details. This strategy gives authorities the upper hand. More importantly, it creates significant pressure on those who have previously been able to slip under the radar. The psychological pressure on them will increase, and this effect has already been seen within the Chinese community.
我一个河南的粉丝问我说，他一个
A follower from Henan asked me if his friend who went to the US would be deported. First, if he doesn't have legal status, stay hidden. If not, he'll definitely be caught. If he says he doesn't want to go back to China, the immigration service will notify his home country within 6 hours. If his home country promises that he won't face harm after returning, he will be deported immediately. If he can't prove his passport, can't prove he's Chinese, and doesn't want to go back, he could be sent to another country, like in Africa. Yes, Africa. Right now, in the US, even H-1B visa holders, PhDs, postdocs or tech workers, if they get laid off, are given 6 months to find a new job. Some people during these 6 months of job hunting have received summons for deportation hearings. So I'll say again, if you can go back as soon as possible. Because both immigration services and Trump have said that they will catch people. Even if you have a green card or citizenship, if you've committed fraud, whether it's immigration fraud or welfare fraud, they will investigate you.
The lawyer representing the case made an important point. Anyone who can return should, and those involved in fraud will not escape. Some have pointed out that while not everyone involved in fraud is necessarily a CCP member or infiltrator, CCP infiltrators are always liars and fraudsters. Currently, it is almost impossible for CCP members to obtain a US visa through normal procedures, and it is even more unlikely they could get a green card or citizenship. From a certain perspective, the US and China have already started a war. The CCP has been waging an unrestricted warfare on the US for years, and the US has officially responded. The Trump administration's crackdown on enemies of the US has now expanded from domestic efforts to global actions. Recently, a CCP spy was arrested in Italy and is facing extradition to the US. Some on Chinese social media have compared the case to the Meng Wanzhou case. Meng Wanzhou, deputy chair of Huawei, was placed under house arrest in Canada in 2018. The US requested for her extradition, accusing her of bank and wire fraud related to violating US sanctions against Iran. On July 8th, the US Department of Justice announced the arrest of a hacker in Italy, who was funded by China's Ministry of State Security and the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The hacker now faces multiple felony charges. The hacker, 33-year-old Xu Ziwei, was arrested on July 3rd at Milan Malpensa Airport. On July 8th, a grand jury in the Southern District of Texas unsealed an indictment against Xu and his accomplice, 44-year-old Zhang Yu. They are accused of participating in a series of hacking operations between 2020 and 2021, including the large-scale cyber attack codenamed Hafnium, which affected thousands of computers worldwide and impacted over 12,700 US organizations. The indictment details how these cyber attacks were directed and supervised by China's Ministry of State Security and the Shanghai State Security Bureau. The targets include US universities, research institutions, law firms, and companies using exchange mail servers, with the goal of stealing sensitive data, including information about COVID-19 vaccine research and government policies. Xu and Zhang worked together on multiple hacking operations, with the Shanghai State Security Bureau acting as the command center for stealing large amounts of emails and data. At the time of the hacks, Xu worked for Shanghai Power Rock Network Technology Co. Limited. The company is one of the many contracted hacker outsourcing firms in China, which have long been tasked by the CCP to carry out cyber attacks and provide technical support to national security agencies. According to the indictment, Xu traveled to Guangzhou twice in 2024 and 2025 to meet with officials from China's Ministry of State Security to discuss payment and assignments. This case highlights how Beijing uses underground hacker companies like PowerRock to conduct cyber attacks while hiding official connections. Xu faces 9 charges, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 2 accounts of wire fraud, with each charge carrying a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. According to the Italian news agency ANSA, Xu arrived in Italy on July 3rd for vacation, where he was arrested at Milan Malpensa Airport by Italian police under a US-issued arrest warrant. Xu's accomplice, whose name is Zhang Yu, is still at large, and the FBI is calling for anyone with information to come forward. The U.S. Department of Justice's Office of International Affairs is currently assisting Italian authorities with the extradition process. Nicholas Gange, a U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Texas, said, "The indictment alleges that Xu was hacking and stealing crucial COVID-19 research at the behest of the Chinese government, while that same government was simultaneously withholding information about the virus and its origins." The Southern District of Texas has been waiting years to bring Xu to justice, and that day is nearly at hand. As this case shows, even if it takes years, we will track hackers down and make them answer for their crimes. The United States does not forget. The final act of the showdown between the US and Communist China has begun. The Trump administration's crackdown on CCP members is underway, and many more new developments are expected in the near future.